Switzerland in the 1980s ran into a public health crisis involved with heroin and HIV. The Swiss government in response formulated a solution that revolved around harm reduction. They opened up treatment centers for addicts that provided them with a safe and clean place to stay. This reduced death from overdose by 50%, and the centers were able to put 70% of the addicts back to work in productive jobs off the drug. The first consequence of drug prohibition is more overdoses and drug-related illnesses. Legally distributed pharmaceutical goods are able to be regulated and corrected for impurities by way of government regulatory groups and through media, allowing for extra accountability in that market. Akin to what we saw when we banned alcohol in 1920. Smugglers of the banned substance produce the drink in higher potency so they can carry around more of the actual drink. This shored up a sharp increase in alcohol poisoning with the growth of hard liquor. It's an important facet to look at who would be affected by ending the war on drugs and lifting prohibition. Legal business would take over and outcompete cartels from afar. This would devastate the illegal drug trade and would take funding from terror groups and cartels plaguing countries around the world. Law enforcement would be on the list of groups affected as well. America spends around $50 billion annually to fund the war on drugs. Groups like the National Fraternal Order of Police have spent around $220,000 annually on lobbying efforts for prohibition. This influences Washington heavily, given that support from a police group looks good for any candidate. That's not to mention the sweet loot they get sometimes from seizing property from drug traffickers. Private prison corporations would also be affected by prohibition laws rather directly. The more people going to jail, then the more of a demand there is for their service. Private prisons get paid for each prisoner they house, so their motive is to ensure that they get as much as they can. The Corrections Corporation of America has spent around $1 million a year on lobbying efforts, and GEO Corrections has spent around $240,000 to $660,000 on lobbying annually as well. Retired police officer turned anti-drug war lobbyist Howard Wooldridge said in an interview that one of his biggest opponents on Capitol Hill was the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, given that marijuana can take the place of everything from Advil to Vicodin and other expensive pills. In 2013, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America spent around $18 million on lobbying efforts, and drug companies have spent around $22 million on both the 2012 and 2016 elections. In total, since 1990, they have spent around $200 million on lobbying.